Hello, my name is Conor Curran, and seeing as we're gathered here under the title, Speaking Truth to Power, I would like to speak about the power I learned about in Iraq. And this is not the power we commonly associate with the word, with the ideas of the power to rule, the power to control or destroy. I call this the power of decay. I'm talking about the power which I found, which is the power to transform, the power to grow, and the power to create. And I had the privilege of encountering this power on a summer day back in July of 2007 when I was on patrol with my squad, patrolling through a poor area of LaMotte, Iraq. And on this patrol, we encountered something odd. We encountered a house that was your typical Iraqi dwelling, but what we thought was interesting about it was this walled-in courtyard. And in this courtyard was a beautiful lawn and garden that would have been the envy of anyone here with a sprinkler system and a lot of time on their hands, let alone in the middle of the desert. And we approached this with a mindset where we had just been entrenched in fear. Our friends had died at cell phone calls that had set off bombs or cameras that recorded our troop movements for ambushes. And just about anything we take for granted in our everyday lives became a reason for us to shoot you. And as we looked at this garden, we saw that someone must have been paid a lot to be able to afford the time and water to make this garden grow. And we saw a great way to hide a cache of weapons under all that growing grass. We thought, yeah, if I had a big weapons store, I'll bury it and throw some grass seed on it and save it for when I really need it. So the more we thought about this, the more it made sense to us that the people living at this residence must be terrorists. So with that, we decided to raid the house, and my squad went in, raided the house, and they leave no nook and cranny unexplored. They discovered parts of your house that you didn't even know existed. And I pulled out my mine detector and started sweeping the man's courtyard, making it look like a bad day at the golf course as I dug holes out each beep in the mine detector. And then something interesting happened as we were piece by piece tearing apart this family's life. I looked over as I was in the midst, on my knees, digging a hole in this man's beautiful lawn, and I saw coming out of the house a man carrying a tray of tea with him. And as he came out carrying this tray of tea, he went to each one of my squad members and began serving them this tea. I paid it no mind. I figured my squad members were smart enough to not drink this obvious poison. And finally, the man came up to me. And as he served me this tea, I looked him in the eye just to get a good read on the situation. And when I did, I was blown away, because what I found is something I'd never encountered before in Iraq. I found kindness and compassion and love emanating from this man's eyes as he attempted to serve me this tea. I was completely blown away. And then he opened his mouth, and my mind just about completely melted as he spoke to me in a well-educated English tongue. And it wasn't any words of condemnation, but he wanted to know about me, about my family back home. He wanted ultimately to be my friend. And that just set me just reeling into a place where I started thinking, wow, I was in Iraq thinking that we were going to spread democracy and freedom to a people who couldn't get it together enough to do it, and therefore must be less of a human than I. And here I was, being an absolute devil to a man and his family, and he was teaching me what it really was to be a human. And it took a while for that really to set in. I didn't drop my gun then and just start growing out my hair yet. it took a while to get to that point. But what initially happened was I started feeling the guilt of what I was doing to the Iraqi people. I started questioning why I was there, why I was doing what I was doing, why I was raiding people's homes, tearing families and lives apart. And I decided that I would get out of the Marine Corps, that I would not continue a career in the Marines after my 4-year enlistment was up. And so that's what I did. I got out, and I decided to leave it all behind me. I thought that would be easy, and I would just go on and live the American dream. And I found that was real hard. I was diagnosed with PTSD when I got out. And I found that I was trapped when I got out. That power that I think so many of us are under the illusion of, even in our day-to-day American life, that the idea that we have to dominate our field, that we have to come out and power our way to the top of our businesses, our community politics, our politics in general, whatever it may be. I saw that that was this destroying force, and I could not grasp to continue going down that road, as early in my life it led me to drugs, then it led me to war, and I was scared of where it was going next. But then I started remembering the Iraqi man and how he had taken what was basically the worst scenario someone could face, and instead of trying to dominate it and control it to make the outcome of it in his favor, he showed me a new path. He showed me that approaching the worst situation one can face with love and compassion can transform the situation, just as when he showed that compassion to us, we stopped just indiscriminately destroying his stuff, but a respect was instantly gained for him and his property. That lesson struck home, and I started thinking, wow, I can try incorporating that in my life. And as I did that, I felt this new freedom, that I did not have to go down the traditional road of power, but I could now approach any situation with love and compassion and know that the outcome could be marvelous. And as I experienced this new way of life, just the joy I felt was overwhelming. And my friends and my family began to catch on. And as they started employing this compassion in the face of all situations in their life, their lives were transformed from lives of anger and unhappiness to lives of joy as well. And the lives of their friends began to be transformed as well. And then one day it struck me that this was all possible. All these changed lives back in Toledo, Ohio, just from terrible to wonderful, happened because of one afternoon when an Iraqi man chose to love his enemy in the worst of situations. And that love traveled halfway across the world, transformed a person, and then a family, friends, and then an entire community. And I finally knew what real power was. And I decided from that moment on that I want to make every move in my life have that same power of love and compassion that Iraqi man showed me was possible. And I hope all of you will join me in such a pursuit. And I think it couldn't be a more marvelous way to change the world. Thank you.